Applecross is a peninsula in the Northwest Highlands that looks across to the north of Skye. We have about a population of 250 across 20 crofting townships and 26,000 hectares, so we are a really sparsely populated area. The Applecross Community Company started in 2008, working to deliver a whole range of different community benefit projects. In 2018, we undertook a community survey and a community consultation, which helped set our current priorities, and the most important one of these was addressing the problem of affordable housing. Another thing we needed to think about was how the houses would be allocated. The board members of the Applecross Community Company were quite concerned about the perceived conflicts of interest because we're such a small community and because everyone knows each other and is connected with each other. So the way that we resolved this was that we worked with the Community Housing Trust to develop the criteria for the allocation of the houses, but the Community Housing Trust then went ahead and organised the allocation of the tenancies based on those criteria, and they did that independently from the community company, and that worked really well for us.
So CHT, we're involved with ACC in agreeing with them who they wish to house in the new development, and they prioritise the groups that they wish to allocate the properties to in discussion with the CHT, and then we devised and agreed an allocation policy with them, taking into account our community allocation policy. When communities are looking at housing developments and agreeing their allocation policy, they should take into account the housing need of the people in the local community, and also decide whether they actually want to encourage people to move into the community as well as house existing residents as well. For example, if a school role is reducing or something, they may want to look at taking families into the community, or if there are people who are key workers in the community, housing people who actually meet that priority group. There's actually quite a lot for communities to consider as far as their tenancies and legal requirements as a landlord. First of all, they need to make sure that they are actually registered as a private landlord, and also if they decide that they wish to take a deposit, they need to be registered with an approved tenancy deposit scheme. There is also the requirement for private landlords to make sure that their properties meet with all the legal requirements for repairs and maintenance, fire safety, that sort of thing. And they also need to be aware of their responsibilities under the private residential tenancy agreement, which is the tenancy agreement that the tenants sign up to.
So as we moved from the construction phase to the point where the houses will be lived in, there were three things that we needed to think about. The first was the types of tenancies that we wanted to have for these houses. Because there are only 3 houses, and because there's such a strong need for afforded rentable houses in Applecross, we decided to go for rented tenancies. The Applecross Community Company, however, has also just acquired another site, also through Scottish Land Fund support, on which we're going to be developing a larger number of houses, and on that site we are exploring a range of different types of tenancies, self-build plots and also rent-to-buy properties. So we hope that this will create a range of different options for members of our community for future housing needs.
CHT offer a full range of housing management services to ACC. That's starting from the actual marketing of the properties, then the allocation, then we take on the full housing management services, which would include repairs and maintenance, defects, rent accounts, and also any current tenancy management issues that may arise. We also then provide end of tenancy services and then subsequent reallocations.
Looking back, there's a number of different lessons, I suppose, that could be learned and that might be of use to other community groups who are considering developing their own affordable housing projects. One of them relates to timeframes. Every single stage of this project took longer than we'd expected, so we'd really recommend planning buffer zones between the different stages so that if there's a delay in one area, it doesn't impact on the overall timeframe. One of the most important lessons for us, and I think for anyone at the moment thinking about building affordable housing in remote rural areas like Applecross is about whether or not the projects can be financially viable. Since the pandemic, all the different costs associated with construction have increased, and that's becoming increasingly challenging when you're trying to also build houses which are affordable and accessible to your local residents. So making sure that you have a viable business plan underpinning everything is really critical, and this is something that we are spending a lot of time thinking about in our next affordable housing development project. It's clear that making more funding available for these projects would help, but also encouraging and thinking about innovative ways of financing these projects, working with different and new partners might also be something that could work and is working for other communities, and it's something that we're thinking about at the moment. And then another lesson learned really is about the importance of community engagement. We engage with all the different residents in Applecross about this project from the very first time we started thinking about it. As the build was going on, we worked closely with the neighbours and the grazing committee and others to make sure that they knew what was going to be happening, and if they had any questions or issues they could come and talk to us. And then we've also tried to involve the wider community in different parts of the project. For example, it was a community that chose the name Antol Ban, which means the fair hollow in English. So in terms of the impact of this project so far, it has been a real success. We've provided an affordable, accessible and energy efficient home to 3 different families in Applecross, and this has made a huge difference to their lives because they were in desperate housing need before this. It's also been, I guess, a way for the Applecross Community Company to cut its teeth and learn what it means to be delivering affordable houses, and that experience is going to be critical as we move on to the much larger project that we're hopefully going to be starting to deliver later on this year.
In the mind, and it's hard to prioritize all these good things in life, but you focus on what isn't right. There's no way to run and hide, so you